Review, Subcommittee number 3. We are grateful that you would take the time to be with us today. And as you know, we are going to be focusing on the issue of CalWorks today, and really looking forward to, one, hearing from all of you, and then two, to the discussion that I know the senators are going to be having today. A few housekeeping items. As with any Human Services Committee meeting, we are providing chocolate today. You have chocolate in the back. I know that the senator said, "Oh my goodness, watch out!" And so we do welcome you to please chew on that all throughout the hearing. And there's a few thank yous that I'd like to be able to provide here today, and that is to the amazing staff team that has helped put today together. Maria Brown, Kelly Burns, Sam Louie, and Nancy Stroll. We're very grateful. And also want to introduce our sergeants who are here today, Jody and Michaela. Thank you so much for all the work that has gone into this afternoon's hearing as well. Would like to be able to offer a few opening remarks and then turn it over to Chairwoman Mitchell to my right, and then ask the Vice Chair to see if he has any opening remarks as well. And again, we are just so grateful that you would take the time to attend today's hearing. This afternoon, we're going to be taking a close look at the Welfare to Work program in the state of California. As you know, Welfare to Work is one of the best ways that our state can reduce poverty and help families achieve self-sufficiency and to help our communities thrive. As many of you have seen in press reports, despite the Golden State's rebounding economy, California has the worst poverty rate in the country. Nearly 1 in 4 residents in the state of California lives at or below the federal poverty threshold. Equally as concerning are the rates of deep poverty, which apply to families living at or below half the poverty threshold. In California, nearly 3 million people lived in deep poverty in 2013. And while it's not the only program, Welfare to Work is a key piece of the CalWorks program, which is our state's answer to helping families climb out of poverty and find stability within their lives. But in the past 5 years, the CalWorks program has undergone dramatic changes. Most of these were done in the context of the need to make significant budget cuts during the Great Recession. But the impact on California's poor families, especially women and children, is dramatic. More than 90% of CalWorks heads of households are headed by women. 2/3 are single and never married. And I got to tell you, being raised by a single mom, my grandma, that is absolutely disturbing. And as an example, the rate of homelessness of CalWorks families have nearly increased 188% in Los Angeles. In July of '06, Los Angeles saw nearly 5,500 families living without shelter. In November of 2014, a staggering 16,000 families, tens of thousands of residents, were without homes. And here's the background. One of the reasons why we're seeing these increases. In 2011, the state cut the lifetime time limit from 60 months to 48 months for CalWorks eligibility, again, in response to the budget. In 2012, the governor presented a restructuring plan of the program that shortened an adult's eligibility for Welfare to Work program to 24 months, unless they are working in unsubsidized jobs. Representatives of the administration told us here in the legislature that with the shorter clock, clients would be getting earlier and more meaningful engagement with caseworkers at the front end, which would help connect them with a more individualized opportunity to find jobs and enhance educational access. In addition, in a bill passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, the state is required to give clients a statewide standardized assessment and counseling and support services for families that are faced with homelessness, mental illness, and other challenges to securing a job. And this legislation provided for more intensive case management for those same families, more subsidized employment, and other supports. But, as you will hear today, many of those pieces are coming together very slowly. And this is all the while California's poverty rate has continued to rise and the gap has widened. It has been, and as you will hear today, a major undertaking to incorporate all the changes in the new program. And it's clear the outcomes of our state's neediest residents continues to suffer, and taxpayers will pay more in the long run if these system changes aren't implemented at a faster clip. The assessment tool, as many of you know it as OCAT, is supposed to identify families with barriers right when they walk through the door when applying for services. The OCAT won't be coming online until later this year at the very earliest. And statewide, only about 1,300 families are getting help through the Family Stabilization Program out of the nearly 550,000 families and over 1 million kids who are on CalWORKs. The number of people going to community colleges is also declining. And at this point, the 24-month time clock has been turned back to 26 months, but there are more than 50,000 families whose time is ticking away as the state tries to make all the changes, but their time is running out soon. Today, we're going to examine where we are in the process and how the lack of action is affecting clients who are close to timing out the welfare to work system. The consequences for families who run out of time is a loss of income that plunges many of them into deep poverty and will ultimately cost taxpayers more. And I think that we are all well aware from the research on the effects of poverty on kids. We know that when kids are living at that level of poverty, it's going to cause a permanent harm to the child's health and well-being. Finally, this whole discussion today is about $6 million. $6 million to be able to fully implement back to 60 months. $500,000 in state funding. I think we can do better and move forward with the 60 months. I'm going to now turn it over to the chairwoman, Senator Holly Mitchell, who we're grateful for her leadership, for the many years of leadership, and for her work on Budget Sub.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate the opportunity to join with the Senate Human Services Committee and all of our colleagues to have a very important conversation that I think should be at the top of our agenda as policymakers in the state of California. Because to politicize poverty, I think, would be a huge mistake on our parts at this point in time in our state's history, given the health of our general fund. And so, from my perspective, the purpose of today's hearing is to really assess the effectiveness of current policies and to help us build a program that will be more effective road for CalWORKs recipients, a road out of poverty, and particularly out of deep poverty for California's children. And so the question I ask myself, and I ask all of us to ponder, is whether the CalWORKs program as it is designed and operated today is a poverty maintenance program or a program to lift children out of poverty. I think we've got to review CalWORKs from the lens of children and their families first and foremost, because CalWORKs and all of its various predecessors, from AFDC to GAIN to all of its predecessors, was statutorily established to prevent children from slipping deeper into poverty. And so if we're clear about the intent and focus of the program, I feel we should be clear about how we affect that goal. Because as the Senator said, the human costs have been well documented by the testimony in gatherings like this of CalWORKs recipients, their children, community-based organizations, county workers, advocates, and academics. We all know what the problem is, and I hope that we all can come to some conclusion about what some of the remedies should be. In a hearing just last week, I learned an amazing statistic that stuck with me. Child poverty in California today, at its current level, costs us, all of us as Californians, approximately $90 billion per year in terms of their lifelong lost productivity because of our lack of investment in their critical years right now. And if you want the source, it was the Children's Defense Fund, and they based that on the fact that 18% of U.S. poor children live in California, and California's share of the national estimate child poverty cost of $500 billion per year would be that $90 billion per year figure. So when we really want to think about it, if you want to step away from the humanity aspect and look at it from a purely fiscal perspective, $90 billion in lost revenues that impact all of us as Californians. So we have a long history here in terms of looking at various issues. We've addressed it every year through legislation, through the budget. In 2012, we looked at reducing the CalWORKs clock to the 24-month period. There was lots of conversations in the budget subcommittee that I chaired at that point, sub 1 in the assembly. We attempted to negotiate policies that we could put in place that would help affect earlier intervention on behalf of CalWORKs recipients. We'll hear about that today. And what I said when I voted on that budget trailer bill in sub 1 back then was that I intended as an individual policymaker to continue to provide continuous and comprehensive oversight, and that I wanted to invite any member that understands the reality of CalWORKs to join me, because CalWORKs must provide opportunity for job seekers rather than a path to destitution. I stand by those words. Through that process, through the subcommittee work, through my select committee on women and inequality, we've identified over the last several years a number of policy priorities that we think will help make CalWORKs a more useful, effective program, which includes the elimination of the maximum family grant. But I want to just highlight today my expectations of today's hearing and just to raise some questions that I hope can be answered either in testimony today or at future opportunities, either before the Human Services Committee or Budget Sub 3, but as we continue to deliberate the current year's budget. Couple of pieces that aren't included in today's agenda, but I think are an important part of this overall discussion. A, is the current program maintaining poverty and deep poverty, or is it indeed a path out of poverty? Number 2, what are the effects of the current policies on children? Are they being supported or are they harmed? 3, child care has demonstrated positive impact on children and allows parents to work. Why is the uptake rate for stage 1 child care among welfare to work recipients currently 29% per the LAO data? And you'll see that in the presentation later today. I read it. Number 4, why are there nearly 1 in 4 CalWORKs families in sanction currently? And 5, how have the families receiving the young child exemption fared as they've been re-engaged? Now, all of you who know me, you know that I'm a policy wonk and I get deep down into the weeds. I can't help myself. But I think those are critical, specific questions that we have to really wrap our arms around to fully engage in whether or not the CalWORKs program as it's fashioned today is living up to its statutory goal, which is to keep children from slipping deeper into poverty. I appreciate the opportunity to join with you today, sir, and look forward to today's dense, information-rich hearing.
Absolutely. And again, Senator, thank you in all sincerity for your amazing work on behalf of most vulnerable in the state.
Thank you.
Very grateful. Without further ado, I'd like to be able to see if Vice Chair Senator Berryhill would like to have some opening comments.
I'd be remiss if I didn't have a few, huh?
No, absolutely.
Well, I too want to thank everybody for coming out here today and look forward to a robust discussion on how we might make a kind of a broken system a little bit better. The chairman has a good point when she talks about the amount of kids that are falling below the poverty level, and that's something that I think, even though we may have different ways of solving this problem between the parties, I think that we all have their best interests in mind. But that being said, I will say that my Republican colleagues and I do have some concerns over the overall panel today. And Madam Chair, if I might take just a moment to look down the list of those here to testify, that while there are 13 invited speakers on the agenda today, which is a great group, I expected there to be more than just a last-minute gesture to include just one of the 4 panelists recommended by my Republican colleagues. As noted in our letter to you just this last week, we continue to be concerned about the lack of balance on committee panels. It's only a disservice to the people of California because it fails to provide a comprehensive discussion and a complete look on what is going on. Now, this isn't the first time that this has happened in this institution, but to give it due service, I think you have to have equal time on both sides. I don't think we're getting that here today. The acceptance of one recommended panelist who couldn't make it here on such short notice simply is not a serious response to our concerns, and it's disingenuous at best, in my opinion. Going forward, as we move forward into this year and into this next session, I would hope the committee would allow for more balanced panels that reflect a diversity of viewpoints and professionals rather than just a preferred view of certain people. It is then and only then we can have a full and open dialogue, which I just don't think that we're going to fully get today. So with that, I want to thank you for convening this joint committee. I don't think I've been on one since I've been elected here. So I'm very much looking forward to the discussions today, and thank you for putting this together.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Chair. And just for a little bit of background, we did receive a letter from the Vice Chair a little after 2 p.m. on Friday with a suggested group of panelists. The chairwoman of Budget Sub and I met yesterday and immediately went into action to be able to invite a panelist to be able to attend. The Vice Chair is right. It was late, but we did receive the letter at 2:14 p.m. on Friday. And as I shared with the Vice Chair both yesterday as well as today, I look forward to having that conversation about meeting ahead of time so that we're able to look at additional panelists in the future. And again, I want to say thank you to the Vice Chair for his fantastic commitment to this committee and state. And I think, Chairwoman, you also wanted to be able to say a few words.
I just wanted to comment as well that as I heard the gentleman's, my colleagues express concern, and I certainly, as Sub 3 Chair, will take it under advisement. I would ask that we work a little more closely ahead of time to be clear about the list. But as I look at the agenda, and I recognize that the vast majority of the people here are agency heads, are people who are direct service providers, because the nature of our conversation today is how the program works. And I don't know the political orientation or of these people who happen to have these jobs, quite frankly. That's not a question I ever ask. And so if it were a hearing that focused on kind of a theoretical perspective of poverty, I would get it. And there would be an obligation to create a balance. But when I recognize that there are service providers and people who are doing the work, I think we attempted to invite people who could give us on-the-ground perspective about how the program is being delivered. And that was the effort and the lens through which we developed the agenda today. And so it wasn't an intent to willfully exclude any political orientation. It's the people who are doing the job.
Well, I appreciate that. I will say that our staff, to my knowledge, was engaged here for a number of weeks in trying to get this thing put together. But that being said, I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair. Would like to be able to turn it over to Ms. Senator Hancock or Mr. Stone, Senator Stone, if they have any opening comments.
Senator Stone is over there. I don't have any opening
No, I know.
comments. I'm eager to learn more about what we can do about the appalling condition of poverty in California. So,
Thank you so much, Senator Hancock. Very grateful. Mr. Stone, welcome, sir, and please, if you have any opening comments.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you. I'm still learning the ropes up here in the state capitol. Let me just say that I'm very honored to sit on this committee with my distinguished colleagues and staff. And I come, as you know, with a county background and working with workforce development and having many successes in my county and getting people from welfare to work. And so I'm honored to be here, sitting on the dais and working with all of you to make sure that we try to take care of the less fortunate in our communities and give them the opportunity to achieve American dreams. And I think we have the opportunities here in state government to do that. And so I'm very honored to be a part of the team.
Thank you.
Very grateful, Mr. Stone. Thank you so much. It's good to see you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if it is the will of the senators at the dais, we'd like to be able to move into our first panel. It is the overview of California's Welfare to Work program. This panel will discuss poverty in California and how the state's Welfare to Work program focuses on helping poor families achieve self-sufficiency. Director Lightbourne, who we are grateful is here today. Thank you so much, sir. We'll discuss recent changes to the Welfare to Work plan. But first, we will start with a client who has experienced success through the program. I would like to be able to invite our first panel to please come forward. We have Michelle, who is going to kick us off today, who is a Welfare to Work client. We have Chris Haney, who is the Executive Director of the California Budget and Policy Center. Mr. Will Lightbourne, Director, Department of Social Services, is here, along with Ryan Woolsey. Ryan is the Fiscal and Policy Analysis of the Legislative Analyst's Office. We welcome our panel to the front as we get situated. Thank you all for being here today. And as the Senator had mentioned, we have a robust agenda today. So we're going to be looking at 5 to 7 minutes from each panelist. And of course, we'll be opening up for public comment at the end of this agenda at 3 minutes per individual. So without further ado, we welcome Michelle. We are grateful that you would take the time to be here.
Thank you guys for inviting me to talk as well. When I was invited by y'all to speak today, I was scared. I was not scared because important people were going to be listening to the moments of my life when I was vulnerable. I was scared because I did not want to let anyone down that are going through similar experiences. These past 3 years, I've had the most humble experiences of my life. I have found myself. For 14 years, I was stripped down to nothing: my self-worth, my confidence, and my happiness. They were taken away from me through abusive words and abusive actions. I am a survivor. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I am 31 years old and a mother of 3 beautiful children: Jose Luis, 13, Mackenzie, 11, and Graciela, 6. They are my strength, and they give me my reason to get up every day. I was born in a world of drugs, abuse, and prostitution. I was taken away and put in a privileged household, and for 4 years I was molested. At 13, I had my innocence taken away by rape. At 15, I entered an abusive relationship that I could not get out of. So I've dealt with many issues throughout my life. It took me 13 years to get up the courage to leave. The reason was so my son respected women as he got older, and my two daughters know that violence is not love. I've always been a hard worker and try to do my part to contribute to society. In North Carolina, where I moved to when I was 17, I was born and raised here in California. I held a county job and a retail job, both part-time. I was more depressed because after I had left my abusive husband, I didn't have any family out there. So I moved back to California to reconnect with my family, and I wanted to establish a relationship with them. I came out to California on a promise from a friend, but it fell through. I found myself homeless for the first time in my life. I used my once-in-a-lifetime homeless assistance and found a place in Stockton. I had attained 2 jobs in July and August through CalWorks over in San Joaquin County, and then I decided to help my friend with kids temporarily. She brought problems in the household, and I did not want my children to be exposed to that, so I left that. I found my kids and myself homeless for the second time. I was scared and did not know what to do. We were in a tent first, September through October. I never believed that I would ever be in this kind of situation. I was supposed to be a role model to my kids. How was I going to do that while we were living in a tent? My depression was getting deeper. The weather had gotten colder, so we moved to the car, and that was through November through December. I knew what it felt like to want to turn to substance to take away the pain. I never got to do that, but I was thinking it. I needed to just take that pain away. But my kids are everything to me, and I could not disappoint them in my lowest point in my life. During our time being homeless, the kids stayed in school, and I took them to parks so they can allow them to play. If you looked at us, you would have never thought we had no home. I promised myself we would take extra care of ourselves so we did not look the part, and I promised myself that I would take care of my kids so they would not be taken away. We changed in our storage unit that we had for school and for me to go job search, and washed up with baby wipes to keep us clean. We prepared food in our car, and we sometimes had plug-ins for a heated little round heated hot plate. I came across a flyer about the Second Chance Homeless program. I went in and passed the assessment. The people were awesome. They made me feel like they were down on my level. They supported me and listened to what was going on with me. I had so many odds against me. I was a single mother, bad credit, and no home. I felt hopeless. The program Welfare to Work put me in a class to learn about myself. It made sense because I found out that I am worth being employed. I have skills. I am important. People wanted to help me and tap into my inner determination. At the end of the class, I received a certificate, and it is as special to me as my AA degree. Everything was falling into place. 2 weeks before Christmas, I was able to move into an apartment that my budget was able to afford. They were able to negotiate my rent down, the social service were, and we were content and thankful. The kids were accepted in the daycare program, so when I was job searching, I wouldn't have to worry about them being taken care of. That gave me ability to job search every day, 5 days a week, while the center was open. I was able to have access to a therapist for my PTSD and panic attack disorder. For the first time in my life, I am in control of my body and how it reacts in a situation. The Family Stabilization Program was an angel for me. It helped me with everything I was going through. It helped me furnish my home, clothes for me and the kids, car repairs, tags and registration, bus passes if I needed it. It was hard to accept these things, but I knew I had to set aside my pride so my kids' lives can get back to normal. It meant so much to get back on track and to have the support of the Yolo County. These programs helped me make my goals come true. I would not be where I am today because people do not rent to people with no income. It's really hard to find housing, and even a job without an address. So they helped me plan ahead and get ready for work. I had no money, but I was getting through on my cash aid. So clothes and things for housing, like clothes and accessories for the house, just like simple things like toilet paper, the programs helped me with. It's been 5 months since I started the Welfare to Work program in Yolo County. I am now employed as extra help. I work for the Davis County Library. And now I work to help people that are searching for jobs out there for a one-stop job center. I'm so grateful for what I received. I was treated like a human being and supported so I can do better in my life. I'm a strong woman, but I had a moment in my life where I needed to put my goals and needs in someone else's hands. Unfortunately, I'm not alone. There are many families that need these services. It's a growing issue, and hopefully I can shed a light on them. They need to be supported, and they need to know they matter. A smile goes a long way, and it can touch people's hearts at the right moment. So I sit in front of you guys to tell you not all of people in need want a free handout. We are willing to work for it if you give us a chance. We have dreams to become successful too. We sometimes need that first step to boost us towards our goals. And I thank you guys for your time, and hopefully I've touched y'all in some way.
Michelle, you did a fantastic job and just pretty amazing of what you faced and to now where you're at. And we're grateful that you are here sharing your experience and cannot thank you enough for taking the time. If it works for both committees, what we'll do is we'll get through each of the panelists and then be able to open it up for questions and or comments. Sounds good. Okay. It is now our pleasure to be able to introduce Chris